Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for our daily press review, and we're glad to be joined by Dr. Hala Enara, political analyst. Good morning.
Good morning.
And we start off from Al Ahram. Sharm el Sheikh prepares to receive the conference of Egypt's youth. The president sends a message of peace to the whole world and launches the Creativity Prize. 20 general sessions and 8 workshops tackle the different causes. The Youth National Conference begins on Tuesday, and 20 general sessions tackling the different causes and challenges. 8 workshops, a model representing the Egyptian state, an art exhibition, and a talents theater. Still with the same issue from Al Akhbar, we read the president inaugurates the National Dialogue Conference on Tuesday under the slogan, "The Power of Its Youth, Long Live Egypt." El-Sisi inaugurates the first national conference or youth in Sharm el-Sheikh on Tuesday, empowering youth at all the ministers and establishing an organization to eliminate unemployment within 10 years, and a parliament for youth is one of the main axes of the conference. How do you see the significance of this conference that will be held in Sharm el-Sheikh for the youth, dedicated to the youth?
In fact, it's very important because youth is the most important power in any nation. Any developed nations make use of this power, of their ability to be creative, of their imagination, of their love of life, because this drives them to do many things that old people never do. So empowering youth is very important, but what's more important is training them.
Training them,
yes,
right.
Because yes, we need youth in such positions, in leading positions. But before putting them there, we must train them well. They must. It's not only the power of their creative minds and their imagination. There must be very good training for them, because Egypt now needs all its powers, its soft power, its creative powers, the minds of its scientists, of the youth, of everyone. It needs help of everyone.
What do you think are the main challenges facing the youth in Egypt these days?
In fact, they are not yet empowered, and they are not yet trained well. And we don't pay in Egypt, we used not to pay great attention to training on all stages. I know many colleagues who left Egypt and went to work outside Egypt, and they were all the time talking about having training courses all the time. Whenever they finish one, they begin another one. That's why they are different from people inside Egypt. We are not less intelligent, but we are lacking in this field exactly.
Right, and back to Al Ahram front page for some economic news. The largest American investment delegation visits Egypt the day after tomorrow. Egypt hosts the day after tomorrow the activities of the largest American investors and businessmen delegation headed by David Thorne, the leading advisor to the U.S. Secretary of State. The delegation is to hold intensive meetings for 2 days with Prime Minister Sharif Ismail, along with a number of cabinet ministers. How do you see the significance of this delegation, American delegation that will be visiting Egypt, and its impact on investment? And how do you see the status of investment in Egypt?
In fact, it's developing, but for American investments, if the government succeeds in getting many American investments, that will be better for the political situation, because if they have interests inside Egypt, they drive their government to be careful when dealing with Egypt, because their government now is focusing on Israel. It's the most important power for America in the region. But if they have economic interests inside Egypt, they will have to defend these interests. And this happened in many places in the world. Once there was a very big problem between China and Japan was willing to take harsh measures against China. But businessmen prevented their government because they have big interests inside China. I hope this happens in Egypt because economy drives the world, the whole world. It drives governments, even strong governments like the United States. They have to listen to their businessmen.
Right.
So if we have big investments in Egypt, this provides some kind of protection to
And
Egypt.
power,
And power, of course.
Right. Still with the same issue from Al Akhbar, we read more financial news. 50 American companies in Cairo tomorrow to tackle the chances of investment, and El Sisi to meet with a U.S. economic delegation. The new investment law aims at improving the legislative environment and attract investors. The cabinet headed by Prime Minister Sharif Ismail discussed a number of procedures and measures needed to implement the government's program. During the meeting, they discussed ways to improve the atmosphere of investment and attract foreign investors. The ministers also covered a new investment law and the implementation of mega national projects. And here I would like to discuss with you the new investment law. What are your expectations for this law, and when do you think it will be issued?
The most important thing is to make it easy for foreigners to invest in Egypt, because every country that wanted to encourage investors made it easy for them. They don't have to go to 100 places to get permissions to start or launch their projects. They only have one destination to go. They have everything made easy for them. Even some countries prepare feasibility studies and prepare the places. They just need to put their money. What prohibits Egypt from doing this? We can do this, and we need to empower investment minister. I heard from many people that she's talented, but she didn't do anything until now. What's preventing her? Maybe there are some difficulties in doing her work. They must empower her to do her work, and there must be real desire to make it easy to get foreign money, to bring foreign investments to Egypt, because until now we hear investors complaining all the time from difficulties in doing their work.
Right. And from El Masri Al-Yawm, we read more financial news. The government begins the austerity measures and prepares the data of those who deserve the subsidies. Egypt has decreed a cut of up to 20% in government expenditures, a move the Prime Minister says is needed to set an example to follow. A cabinet statement issued says the government also has decreed a 50% cut in the number of ministerial representatives in Egyptian embassies, saying diplomats will take up their tasks instead. Of course, the austerity measures that are being taken by the government are crucial to the economy. How do you see this will achieve the targets of the Egyptian economy?
In fact, cutting the expenditures of the government is very important, and I hope cutting our representative missions outside Egypt does not touch the information missions, because they are very important to Egypt. We have a problem in dealing with outside world. They don't understand what's going on in Egypt. We need propaganda outside Egypt. There are countries who have more problems than Egypt, and tourism did not stop there. Investments did not stop, and they are not targeted as Egypt is targeted. So we need propaganda all the time. We need able people, competent people, not anyone. There must be very able to go there, and they must be put into account how they are doing their work. They are not going there to save just to save money or as a prize. They are going in a mission for Egypt.
Right, and moving on to Al Akhbar front page, we read more financial news. The head of the Egyptian cabinet countryside company says the 1.5 million Fidans project changes the map of Egypt. The head of the company answers the questions of the Egyptians regarding the Dream project. 500,000 Fidans liberates Egypt from the siege of the Nile Valley. The 1.5 million Fidans project, how do you think this will change the map of Egypt?
In fact, if we feed our people, we will be less vulnerable. It's harder for outside forces to press Egypt. Until now, we import wheat from outside. Egypt used to feed the Roman Empire. That
Right.
means that our land is very good for planting wheat.
Right.
We must suffice ourselves, so we don't need foreign help. Because if you need someone else to feed your people, you don't have your decision.
Right.
You cannot be free.
But how do you think it will affect the map of Egypt? Creating
In fact,
new
jobs, of course, it creates new jobs. If we give land to
it will
youth,
create
for example,
new areas also, I think.
new areas, and this creates new jobs. And if you give new lands to the youth, you will decrease unemployment. You will help them to have their share in developing of their country, and you safeguard their loyalty to their country. Our youth flee Egypt because of unemployment. If you give them many chances, if you provide them with chances to earn their living in a good way, they will not leave this country. All countries use Egyptians as science, as a very good manpower, but we cannot make good use of them.
Right, and moving on to another news item from Al-Akhbar front page, the details of a terrorist plan between Istanbul and the Brotherhood. The paper publishes the details of a terrorist plan that is taking place between Istanbul and the offices of the banned group in Cairo. The terrorist group is still selling lies to its mad followers. Turkish Brotherhood conspiracies to assassinate security personnel, spread rumors, create goods crisis, and spread chaos. How do you comment on these plans still being tried in Egypt?
In fact, you can see on Facebook, for example, on social networks, but you will see that the majority are saying that I am not taking part in 11/11. People understand that Egypt is in a turning point, and they understand that January 25 revolution had very noble target, but this was not attained because of Muslim Brotherhood. They jumped to power. They only want power. They don't want to help the people. They don't want to help their country. They are ready to sell their country. They were ready to sell Sinai for Palestinians, for Israel. The people who are saying that we are fighting in Jerusalem, they never touched Israel. They always touch Egypt. And people now understand that. They don't sympathize with them. And they know the dangers to Egypt. And they are ready to defend their country. They are ready to defend their army and their police. I don't think they will succeed.
Right, and from Al-Ahram page 8 we read some regional news. Calm in Aleppo, Syria threatens to shoot any Turkish aircraft that would violate its airspace. The United Nations prepares for an operation to evacuate the wounded. Calls for referring the file of the crisis to the International Criminal Court. The bells of the world churches toll in honor of the Aleppo victims. A ceasefire to allow wounded civilians and rebels to leave besieged parts of Aleppo has been extended into the weekend by Russia. Hope for medical evacuation didn't materialize by Friday evening because of a lack of security guarantees. The Dawn to Dusk humanitarian post that began Thursday will last into Saturday on the orders of President Vladimir Putin. And from Al-Ahram, page 8, we read more regional news. A failed Daesh attack on Kirkuk to divert attention from the Mosul operation. The citizens of the city suffer. The terrorism of the group chases them, and the sectarian revenge stands before them. Daesh militants launched a wave of pre-dawn attacks in and around the northern Iraqi city of Kirkuk, killing at least 14 people. The assault appeared aimed at diverting attention from the Iraqi offensive to retake Mosul and raise fears the extremists could lash out in unpredictable ways as they defend their last urban bastion in Iraq. Viewers, we go to this report and we'll be right back.
Daesh militants launched a wave of pre-dawn attacks in and around the northern Iraqi city of Kirkuk on Friday, killing at least 14 people and setting off fierce clashes with Kurdish security forces that were still raging after sundown. The assault appeared aimed at diverting attention from the Iraqi offensive to retake Mosul and raised fears the extremists could lash out in unpredictable ways as they defend the largest city under their control and their last urban basin in Iraq. Multiple explosions rocked Kirkuk and gunfire rang out around the provincial headquarters where the fighting was concentrated. Smoke rose over the city and the streets were deserted out of fear of militant snipers. Daesh said its fighters targeted the provincial headquarters in a claim carried by its Amaq news agency. Kirkuk is some 100 miles from the Daesh-held city of Mosul, where Iraqi forces launched a wide-scale offensive on Monday. Daesh has, in the past, resorted to suicide bombings in and around Baghdad in response to battlefield losses elsewhere in the country. Kirkuk is an oil-rich city claimed by both Iraq's central government and the autonomous Kurdish region. Kurdish forces assumed full control of the city in the summer of 2014 as Iraq's army and police crumbled in the face of a quick advance by Daesh.
Come back and Mrs. Hala, we have two news items that we would like your comment on, Syria and Iraq, and they are both interlinked.
Yes, in fact, they are connected because Daesh people who are fleeing this offensive are fleeing to Raqqa in Syria. Both countries are connected. Daesh forces are connected in both countries, and the forces behind them you will find Turkey. And unfortunately, some Arab forces who must understand what Turkey is doing in Syria and Iraq, and what it's doing to Egypt, and their turn is coming. So they must be careful. They must be aware of what's happening. The whole region is in danger.
Right, Mrs. Hala, Enara, political analyst, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And dear viewers, now we end our daily press review and we'll be back to resume the rest of the segments of the breakfast show.